On 26 January 1945, the frozen fields of Holtzwihr held their breath. A young Texas farm boy named Audie Murphy stood alone, shivering, wounded, refusing to run. Around him the Colmar Pocket burned. German armor rolled forward, and American lines were collapsing. Murphy was 20 years old, barely 5'5", exhausted, carrying the weight of an entire regiment. This was not strategy on a map, or speeches in distant capitals, but survival measured in seconds. The Second World War in Europe, by early 1945, had become a race against collapse. Everywhere, Allied forces pushed toward the Rhine. Germany threw its last reserves forward, and civilians fled through snow. In this narrow Alsatian village, on the Eastern Front, in winter, the fate of a battalion narrowed to one man. Audie Murphy had already sent his men back, ordered them to dig in, and stayed behind. He climbed onto a burning tank destroyer, flames licking his boots, radio dead in his hands, alone. Machine gun fire tore the air, artillery thundered without pause, and German infantry advanced. Murphy fired until the barrel glowed, calling artillery on his own position, refusing to yield it even then. Every decision he made in those minutes, under smoke and steel, would echo across the battlefield forever. This is the story of how one American soldier, on one forgotten day, stopped an enemy advance alone. What happened next would reshape a legend. Test the limits of courage and define heroism. Before that moment, Murphy had known hunger, loss, and the quiet terror of combat. Born in rural Texas during the Great Depression, he learned endurance early, painfully. He lied about his age to enlist, driven by duty and a need to matter. By 1944, in Italy and France, Murphy had seen friends fall beside him. Each battle stripped away fear, replacing it with resolve and a hard calm. On 26 January 1945, that resolve would be tested beyond imagination. The minutes stretched on 26 January 1945 as German infantry pressed closer through the smoke. Audie Murphy's hands were numb, his shoulder bleeding, yet his focus narrowed to movement. He watched grey figures emerge from the tree line, disciplined, confident, believing the Americans broken. Behind him, his men listened from cover, hearing one machine gun still firing. Murphy adjusted his aim, each burst deliberate, conserving ammunition, fighting instinct with control. The tank destroyer beneath him burned hotter, metal cracking, fuel igniting. Time running out. German mortars began to fall, dirt and snow exploding upward, showering his position relentlessly. Still, Murphy stayed, shouting fire corrections over a damaged phone line, calm under chaos. Every shell he called in landed closer, walking the artillery onto his own coordinates. The enemy hesitated, confused by resistance that should not exist from a single point. Murphy's world shrank to recoil, smoke and the scream of incoming rounds. In those moments, fear did not vanish. It hardened into purpose. He remembered fallen friends, battles in Sicily, landings in Italy, hedgerows in France. War had taught him that retreat could kill more men than standing fast. German officers tried to rally their troops, waving pistols, urging them forward. Murphy cut them down, one by one, refusing to surrender ground. The cold burned his lungs, his ears rang, his vision blurred. After nearly an hour, the attack finally stalled. Momentum broken, confidence shattered. German forces began to pull back, dragging wounded, abandoning the advance entirely. Only then did Murphy climb down, collapsing into the snow, spent. When he reached his men, his uniform was scorched, his face blackened. They stared at him, stunned, alive because he had stayed. The line held, Holtzwihr did not fall, and the Colmar Pocket cracked. News of the stand spread quietly at first, through officers, then reports. But Audie Murphy said little, asking only where to rejoin the fight. He did not know then that history had already taken note. In the days after 26 January 1945, the battlefield fell quiet, but consequences moved fast. Officers walked the frozen ground at Holtzwihr. Counting bodies, tracing tracks, measuring disbelief. What should have been a rout became a stand written in blood and smoke. Audie Murphy was ordered to the rear, examined by medics, wrapped in bandages. He resisted rest, insisting the war was not finished, that others needed him. Word traveled up the chain of command, from battalion to division, then higher. Reports described a lone soldier, wounded, atop a burning vehicle, halting an assault. Veteran commanders, hardened by years of combat, questioned the account at first. Then witnesses spoke. Survivors confirmed it, maps aligned with destruction. The facts were undeniable. The result irreversible. The enemy advance stopped cold. In early February of 1945, Murphy was summoned unexpectedly. He stood before senior officers, uncomfortable, eyes lowered, uniform still scorched. They spoke of valor, duty, sacrifice, words he barely heard. What mattered to him was the line held, his men alive. Soon after, the paperwork moved faster than artillery. Medals authorized, citations drafted. Murphy would receive the Medal of Honor, the highest award for bravery. At 20 years old, he became the most decorated American soldier of the war. Yet the weight of that title pressed heavier than applause. He remembered the faces of those who did not survive, names carved into memory. Victory in Europe came in May 1945, but peace did not arrive for him. The war followed Murphy home, into quiet nights, into sudden noise. Hollywood would later find him, turning battle into film, heroism into image. But no camera could capture the fear, the smell, the cold. Holtzwihr remained a frozen moment where one decision changed everything. History would remember Audie Murphy as a legend. He remembered himself as a soldier who simply refused to run. By March 1945, the war in Europe surged toward its violent conclusion. Cities fell, borders dissolved. Audie Murphy returned to duty, moving east with the 7th Army, carrying quiet recognition. Medals rested heavy on his chest, yet his eyes stayed alert, searching hedgerows and windows. Fame meant nothing at the front. Bullets did not care, shells did not pause. German resistance stiffened near the Rhine. Desperate units fought to delay the inevitable. Murphy led patrols through ruined villages, rubble crunching beneath boots, tension everywhere. Younger soldiers watched him closely, drawing strength from his calm presence. He spoke little, but when he did, men listened. Combat had aged him beyond his years, lines etched by fire and loss. On 29 March 1945, American forces crossed the Rhine in force. The river symbolized Germany's last shield, now shattered under Allied pressure. Murphy crossed with his unit, weapon ready, mind steady, heart guarded. Each step forward carried memories of those who never made it this far. Resistance faded unevenly. Some Germans surrendered, others fought to the end. Murphy showed no hatred, only focus. War demanded clarity, not rage. By April 1945, the end was visible, but danger remained constant. Snipers lingered, mines waited, fear hid behind silence. Murphy survived each day by instinct, experience, and relentless awareness. Then on 18 May 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Church bells rang, crowds celebrated, flags waved across Europe. For soldiers like Murphy, relief mixed with emptiness. The purpose that carried them through fire vanished overnight. He stood among comrades, smiling faintly, unsure how to feel. The war had taken years, friends' innocence. It had given him a name, a legend, and scars unseen. Soon he would return home, to a country eager to celebrate. But the battlefield never truly released those who endured it. In late June 1945, Audie Murphy stepped onto American soil, crowds already waiting. Bands played, reporters shouted, flashes exploded. Victory had a human face now. The nation needed heroes, symbols of sacrifice, proof the cost had meaning. Murphy stood small beneath banners, uncomfortable, hands clasped, eyes distant. Newspapers called him unstoppable, fearless, larger than life. They did not see the nights or the shaking, or the memories that returned uninvited. Parades moved through cities, confetti falling like snow, applause echoing endlessly. Murphy smiled when required, nodded politely, fulfilled the role assigned to him. Inside, the war replayed itself over and over, without permission. The Medal of Honor rested against his chest, cold and heavy. It reminded him not of glory, but of Holtzwihr, of burning steel, of screams. America celebrated victory in August 1945, when Japan surrendered at last. The world exhaled, the war finally over, history turning its page. Murphy returned to Texas, to open land and quiet nights. Peace should have come easily, but it did not. Loud noises sent him diving for cover. Sleep came in fragments. Doctors had no words then for what he carried. He was told to be grateful, to move on, to forget. Instead, he turned to writing, putting memories onto paper. Words gave shape to fear, order to chaos, meaning to pain. Hollywood soon arrived, drawn by his story, his face, his fame. Producers offered contracts, scripts promised heroism and closure. Murphy accepted, hoping to outrun the past. Film sets replaced battlefields, cameras replaced guns, but the weight remained. He played soldiers on screen, reenacting moments too close to truth. Audiences cheered, unaware of the cost behind the performance. Audie Murphy had survived the war, but survival was only the beginning. The fight ahead would be quieter, longer, and deeply personal. By 1947, Hollywood, California, had become Audie Murphy's new battlefield. Studio lights burned bright, cameras rolled endlessly, and expectations pressed in. Producers shaped narratives, trimming fear, polishing courage, simplifying war. Murphy followed directions, hit his marks, delivered lines with restraint. Inside, memory clashed with fiction. Truth resisted performance. He took roles in westerns, then war films. Audiences loved authenticity. They did not know authenticity came at a price. On sets, gunfire sounds triggered flashes, sweat, sudden silence. Crew members noticed his distance, his calm masking tension. In 1955, July St, his memoir To Hell and Back was adapted to film. Murphy played himself, reliving Holtzwihr, reenacting survival frame by frame. The film became a massive success. America embraced its hero again. For Murphy, the experience reopened wounds never healed. He began to suffer nightmares, insomnia, deep depression. At night, the war returned uninvited, louder than applause. Doctors prescribed pills, sedatives meant to quiet the mind. Murphy grew dependent, fighting addiction as fiercely as any enemy. He spoke openly about fear, about trauma, rare honesty then. Long before the term PTSD existed, Murphy lived its reality. He advocated quietly for veterans, urging understanding, compassion. Despite success, money slipped away, contracts faded. Hollywood moved on, always hungry for the next story. Murphy turned to ranching, business ventures, searching for stability. He found moments of peace outdoors, riding, breathing, remembering simpler days. Still, storms followed him inside and out. On 28th of May 1971, tragedy struck without warning. A private plane crashed in Virginia mountains, killing all aboard. Audie Murphy was 45 years old. News spread fast. Shock rippled across the nation. Flags lowered, veterans mourned, history paused briefly. Murphy was laid to rest at Arlington, among those he never forgot. His grave bears no decoration, by his request. No medal shown, only a name. The legend remained, but the man finally rested. After 28 May 1971, the noise faded, but memory did not. Audie Murphy's death forced the nation to look backward. Beyond headlines and film reels, veterans gathered quietly, standing near his grave at Arlington, reading a simple name. No rank, no medals carved, only absence and respect. For those who fought beside him, Murphy was never a symbol. He was the man who stayed when retreat meant survival. Stories resurfaced, told in low voices, across VFW halls and kitchens. Men remembered Holtzwihr, the cold, the fire, the impossible stand. Historians revisited reports, verifying details, tracing consequences. They found no exaggeration, only restraint. Military scholars noted how one decision altered an entire engagement. A single delay disrupted German timing, shattered coordination, preserved an American line. In textbooks, it became a case study. In memory, it remained something more human. Murphy's legacy extended beyond medals or film. He changed how bravery was understood, not loud or fearless, but deliberate. He also changed how trauma slowly entered public awareness. Veterans recognized themselves in his struggle, his silence, his honesty. By the late 20th century, PTSD gained a name. Murphy's life became an early warning, written in experience, not theory. Memorials appeared in Texas, statues small but intentional. Schools taught his story, not as myth but as consequence. Young soldiers learned that courage carried cost. Holtzwihr itself remained quiet. A village returned to peace. Fields once torn by artillery now grew crops again. Only plaques hinted at what happened there. Visitors stood still, imagining smoke, cold, fear. They imagined one man refusing to step back. World War II produced countless heroes. Few carried their burden so openly or so long. Audie Murphy did not seek remembrance. History insisted anyway. Because in war, moments matter. Because sometimes the world turns on one frozen day, one choice. And because remembering is the final duty. In the decades after World War II, memory itself became a battlefield. By the 1980s, America, prosperous and distant from total war, began to forget cost. Audie Murphy's story resisted that drift, resurfacing when nations grew comfortable. Military academies revisited Holtzwihr, not for spectacle, but for decision under pressure. They studied terrain, timing, psychology, and one soldier's refusal to disengage. The lesson was never about invincibility, but responsibility. Murphy had power in that moment and chose to hold the line. In 1990, January, as new wars loomed, veterans spoke his name again. They spoke of leadership without rank, courage without witnesses. Murphy became a quiet benchmark, not shouted but measured against. Hollywood's version aged poorly. Heroics without consequence felt incomplete. The real story endured because it was uncomfortable. Murphy's nightmares, addiction, and honesty complicated the myth. That complexity mattered more with time. By the early 21st century, soldiers deployed overseas carried different weapons. Yet fear, isolation, and split-second decisions remained unchanged. In Iraq, in Afghanistan, Murphy's name appeared in briefings. Not as legend, but as reminder. One person's resolve can shape survival for many. Museums expanded exhibits, letters and photographs displayed carefully. Visitors lingered longer at Murphy's case, sensing something unresolved. He represented both victory and warning. Victory achieved at unbearable personal cost. Historians increasingly framed him not as exception, but mirror. Many soldiers did extraordinary things, most never recorded. Murphy's fame simply illuminated what war demanded from countless others. In Holtzwihr, locals maintained the memorial quietly. No ceremonies daily, no spectacle, just preservation. On anniversaries, veterans arrived, aging, walking slowly. They stood in silence, counting breaths. For them, the war never fully ended. Audie Murphy's stand endured because it was human, because it revealed how fragile outcomes truly are, because history often turns not on armies, but on moments, and because remembering that remains necessary. As the 20th century closed, World War II shifted from memory to history. Survivors aged, voices softened, urgency deepened. Audie Murphy's story gained new weight in that transition. Without living witnesses, the responsibility passed forward. Educators struggled to keep the war human, not abstract. Murphy provided an anchor, a single life within global chaos. Documentarians returned to Holtzwihr, filming snow, fields, silence. They spoke softly, letting wind replace narration. The absence felt louder than artillery. Murphy's letters were reread, his words plain, unembellished. He never glorified violence, never claimed fearlessness. That honesty resonated with new generations. In 2000, January Seuss memorials expanded digitally. Archives opened, photographs scanned, reports preserved. Murphy's Medal of Honor citations circulated widely. Readers paused at the phrase, conspicuous gallantry. They wondered what gallantry truly meant. Not confidence, but commitment. Not strength, but endurance. As global conflicts continued, comparisons emerged. Journalists searched for the next Audie Murphy. Veterans rejected the idea. There was no replacement, only repetition of circumstance. War kept demanding impossible choices. Murphy's life reminded observers that survival was uneven. Some returned celebrated, others forgotten. Many carried scars unseen. In Texas, his birthplace remained modest. Locals spoke his name casually, without ceremony. To them, he was still Audie. Nationally, he became shorthand for bravery. Internationally, he represented American resolve. Yet his true legacy resisted simplification. He stood when others could not. He paid a price few acknowledged then. History matured enough to hold both truths. That evolution mattered, because remembering heroism without cost invites repetition. Murphy's story warned against that, not by speech but by life. As the last veterans passed, silence widened. Only stories remained, and among them, one frozen day in 1945 endured. A moment when the world paused and did not fall. On every anniversary of 26 January 1945, the world moves on quietly. Traffic flows, cities breathe, wars exist elsewhere. Yet history remembers moments, not noise. In Holtzwihr, the ground remains ordinary, deceptively calm. No echoes linger, no fire burns, only memory. Audie Murphy's stand exists now only in record and consequence. One soldier, one choice, one refusal to yield. That moment did not end the war, but it altered lives. Men survived who would have died. Families endured who would have grieved. History often turns without spectacle, unnoticed by most. Murphy never claimed destiny or greatness. He acted because retreat meant loss, and loss meant lives. That distinction matters. True heroism rarely announces itself. It appears when escape is possible, and duty is chosen instead. Murphy's courage was not invincible, it was finite. It consumed him slowly, over years. That truth completes the story. War demands extraordinary acts, then asks survivors to live normally. Few manage both. Murphy tried openly, imperfectly. He carried memory when the world preferred myth. That honesty became his final service. Today, soldiers still face impossible moments. They still decide under fire, without certainty. Murphy's legacy does not command them. It warns them. It reminds them that bravery has a cost, paid later. Remembering him fully means remembering that price. Not just the stand, but the silence after. Not just victory, but endurance. World War II shaped a century. Audie Murphy shaped a moment within it. That is enough. History does not need exaggeration. The facts endure. A young man stood alone on a burning machine in winter. The enemy stopped. The line held. The world continued. And because of that, his story remains.